everybody. Bernie Wall here from IELTSlearningtips.com, and in this video I want to talk to you a little bit about organising your practice, which is something that quite a few of you, especially Man, has been asking for the last couple of weeks. And I'm going to start with a story about something that happened to me. And it's not today, obviously, but it did happen to me a little while ago. All of a sudden, I had no internet, which for somebody who teaches online is a big problem. So it was a shock. And I know for a lot of people, it might seem to be the end of whatever they planned. It was pretty horrific, particularly as it wasn't going to be just for one day, but it was going to be 3 or 4 days. So that is quite something to deal with. And what did I do? Okay, so remember, I have been a teacher for a long, long time. And when I first started teaching, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have even photocopiers. And in the university department that I worked in, which was in Indonesia, all we had were pens, paper, and a manual typewriter. So we had to prepare most of our materials by hand. Even books were in short supply. There were only books available for the teachers. So it wasn't such a big deal for me. I could do something. But what I didn't do was to take the day off or chat to my friends or any of these other things. I actually had something that I could do without the internet, which was to prepare articles and slide recordings, slideshows for these recordings. And that's what I did. And so I was able to get them all done in that day. And on the subsequent days, I managed to do other kind of groundwork, preparing exercises and things for my students. So I'm not really saying this to boast and say, you know, how good am I? It's not, that's not the reason. I'm trying to tell the story to show you how even when things don't go according to plan, and that's particularly true in these days of lockdown because of the coronavirus, it's important to keep your focus, because if you don't, what will happen is your IELTS will run away from you. And then when everything gets back to normal and the exams are once more available, you'll find yourself not ready to jump into the exam. And that would be a shame, because it would be an opportunity missed. So you have to keep going. Don't panic. Think about what you can do. Don't do nothing. That's the worst thing. And think carefully and then get into action. Because A, you'll feel better because you've got something to do. B, when you get to the stage that the exam is again offered, you'll be absolutely ready to take it, rather than wasting the time and then finding that you've got another 3 months before you can take it, or that you're not ready to take it. And here's a really good quotation. So do what you can with what you have from where you are. So look at the resources you have. What access to resources do you have? How much time can you afford to spend each day on this? And then come up with a plan that's going to keep you going until the time that you can take your IELTS exam. Okay, so the first thing is to make things manageable. So don't dive in and say, I'm going to do 5 hours every day. It's not sustainable. I think after a couple of days of doing 5 hours, you'll be exhausted, you'll be muddled, and it won't be serving you. So every day, try and do something. I would say set aside around an hour and a half, if you can, to do regular daily tasks. And repeat these every day. List the things you need to complete. So focus on which are the areas you need the most practice, but don't abandon the things that don't need a lot of practice, because with language, things can go down as well as up. So you want to be able to do everything all the time. Make it a priority. So not something that might be possible, but something that you must do. And so it's useful to organize a session, set a time, and put it into your diary and make an appointment with yourself. If you use an online calendar, as I do, I use a Google Calendar, put that in as an appointment with yourself for an hour and a half, and then it will ping you when it's time to do it. And be serious about it. And then before you finish your practice, set down the task that you want to do the next day so that you're going to be absolutely ready. And when it comes to tomorrow, you know exactly what you're going to do. And then rinse and repeat. That means keep doing it every day. So maybe your focus one day might be on listening, but you also do a little bit of reading, a little bit of writing. The next day, maybe your main focus will be on reading, but you still do a little bit of listening and a little bit of writing or speaking. So that's the best way to do it. Okay. This is a maxim, a truth, actually, that how you do one thing is how you do everything. So if you decide, right, I'm going to focus on my IELTS for an hour and a half every day, you will do it well. But if you think, well, I might do it today, or I can't be bothered doing it today, so I'm going to put it off till tomorrow, you'll never get going. You'll never get into action. You'll never get momentum. So it's important to be very focused and make that commitment. Okay, remember IELTS is about language, and language is about skills, and skills can only improve with regular practice. This is not a memory game. You cannot analyze and memorize. This is about practical skills. So every day you need to do the work. You have to be systematic or it won't stick. It's a good idea to keep a record. So think about what worked today, what went really well. You know, did you get a higher score than usual in your listening or reading? Or did you manage to do a piece of writing in the time? So all of those things are good to record, but also record things that you need more practice with. So maybe you found it difficult to get enough vocabulary in your writing, so you need to learn some more words. Keep a record of that so that tomorrow you can set aside maybe 10 minutes to look for some new vocabulary to learn. So it's really important that everything is integrated. It's also useful to review what you did yesterday before you start today. And you should have set yourself some targets. So let's say you're doing a reading and you only got 27 out of 40 and you need a minimum of 30. Look at why you didn't get the 27. What were the things that stopped you? Sorry, you didn't get 30. What were the things that stopped you? And then set your target for 30 so that you know in today's reading or tomorrow's reading, you're going to need to address those questions so that you can get 2 extra marks. And I do this with my students all the time. We set small goals. So if they got 27, maybe tomorrow they need to try and get 28. And then the day after get 29. And that small step will really help to suddenly arrive at a much higher score. So it's important to set yourselves these little goals. So you learn something, you repeat it. This is really important in language. It's all about repetition. And then you practice it some more. So maybe you put it into different sentences, or maybe the words that you learn for reading, you try and use in your writing. So you do lots of different types of practice. Then you review it, maybe not today, tomorrow, but maybe in a week's time. You review it to make sure it's still in your memory. And then you learn new stuff. And all the time you have to keep recycling. Language is very much about recycling and repeating. Okay, so here's an example timetable that I came up with, which is roughly an hour. So let's start with Monday. So we're going to do IELTS listening. This is going to be our main focus. So we take a test. It might not even be a whole test. Maybe if you find parts 3 and 4 more difficult, or parts 2 and 3 more difficult, you just focus on those. And then when you finish that, go over the ones you got wrong, listen to those bits again to make sure you can hear them. Then read an article. Don't read an IELTS reading. look at something else, maybe a short article in the newspaper or something online, so that you're just doing it for vocabulary or something like that. Then let's do some writing. Let's do a plan for a task 1. So you get your task, you look at it, you decide what you're going to say, what are the numbers you're going to use, and what are you going to put in the different paragraphs. Okay, and then to finish off, you might just record yourself doing a part 2 speaking a couple of times. So record it, listen, see how you can improve it, and record it again. If you've got time to do the same one 3 times, then do it 3 times. And it's really important that you re-record the same piece. Don't just leave it and go to another one. Re-record the same part 2 task. Okay, so then Tuesday, we revised what we did. We've decided today that we're going to focus on reading. Now, a whole reading takes an hour, so that will take up all your time. So today we're just going to concentrate on one passage, which will take you 20 minutes to half an hour if you're not up to speed yet. So focus on that. But maybe for your listening, you're going to listen to something else. So maybe it's going to be a short discussion or a bit of the news, so that you're still doing your listening. And while you're listening, think about vocabulary. Okay, and now we're going to write that task that we planned yesterday. So that's going to take us around 20 minutes to write it and then revise it. And to finish, we're going to have a look. We're not going to do speaking today, but going to have a look at some grammar that might be helpful for our writing. Okay, so that's the sort of preparation that you should be doing. And then maybe on Wednesday, your focus might be on writing task 2. And so you'll spend more time on that, looking at the question, thinking about the ideas, planning it, thinking about your evidence and support and your examples, and making a good plan on that. But you should also do a little bit of reading. You should also do a little bit of speaking, so that every day you're doing a bit of everything. And then you have to review these things. So review what you did yesterday. So if we just go back to that last slide, on Tuesday, you might want to just check your listening to make sure that you got it, and you might want to maybe learn some new words for the next time you do listening. You might want to just look again at your task plan. You'll have to if you're going to write it. So just review it a little bit before you move on. Okay. Set some new targets. So today's target for reading might be to get in reading 1, you might want to say, I'm going to get them all right, because I should be able to do this quite easily. Okay, then keep records, as I mentioned before, what worked, what didn't work, and then start on today's tasks. Okay, and remember, you have to keep recycling. And then before you finish, write down what you're going to do tomorrow, so that when it comes to tomorrow, you're ready to go. You're not spending 15 minutes looking for stuff to do. Okay. And if you do this every day and keep it contained to a manageable period of time, then you should make very steady and guaranteed progress towards your exam. And on my website, IELTSlearningtips.com, there is a sample plan that you can download and use to fill in all of this information. So if you go there, it's under free resources, and I will put a link here so that you can just follow the link and get that study plan, and it's there for you to use. Okay, so I hope that helps with those questions about how to organize your daily work. And I urge you to do it, especially now when you have time to think a little bit more about how to manage your IELTS practice. And I'll see you on the next video.